Really? Wow.
So I want to mention that today's shir again is sponsored by Rabbi Victor Hyman. His grandfather's Yosy was last Friday, and his name is Simcha ben Yosef, the Shomish Rav Aliyah. Zok the Hidduch Mishnah. Ziz shalafnei chalon. I look at this as the way I envision this is a lot of people have these flower beds that they hang out right of their window. So it's like a little shelf. There was a little shelf that was sticking out in front of their window. So the halach is noisnin alav. You're allowed to put things from your home on that shelf, on that ledge. The noitlin mimenu, and you're allowed to take things from that shelf. The Shabbos on Shabbos. So let's see what's going on over here. What's underneath this is highs is the mapik reicha. What is underneath? That is, what is it sticking into? Ilemi the mapik rishus harabim. If it's sticking out into rishus harabim, so how could we allow someone to put kelim on that ledge? Leichush dilman nofil v'ashilasuye. If a keli falls off the ledge into the rishus harabim, the person might go out and retrieve it, and then he'll be retrieving something from a rishus harabim back into rishus hayachid. Elo the mapik rishus hayachid. It has to be that this ledge is over a rishus hayachid. Well then, pshita. Why shouldn't you be able to put things on that ledge or take things off the ledge? This ledge is over rishus harabim. Umay nois nolov the katani that the mission says you could put kelim on it. Only kelim hanishbarim. Only kelim that if they fell off they would smash and break, and no one would bother to retrieve them. But your Tupperware you wouldn't be able to put there because if it fell off, you might go and retrieve it.
I think the regular history just putting rishus. How high is this pole?
No, it's your rishus hayachid to your rishus hayachid.
Isn't it sticking into rishus harabim?
If it's sticking into rishus harabim, then the only fear is that it might fall off.
But why? Isn't rishus harabim go at least 10 tefachim high?
No, it'll fall off and fall down on the ground.
About the actual pole, the actual.
You're putting it on a ledge.
And the ledge.
The ledge sticks out over a rishus harabim.
But is the width of the ledge in your rishus?
Yeah.
Okay.
The ledge itself is your rishus hayachid. And the problem is even if a keli fell off, that's not a problem because you didn't transfer it from the rishus hayachid to rishus harabim. The problem is if it falls off, you're going to go downstairs and pick it up and bring it back. So therefore, if you put things that are going to break, you're not going to go get them.
So essentially, if your building extends over the rishus harabim, it's still rishus hayachid.
If you're 10 tvachim above the ground, it's automatically a rishus hayachid.
Right.
Any area that's 10 tvachim above the ground is a rishus hayachid. Unless it's less than dollar, then tvachim torah.
Arch calls bothered by the same thing. And when the footnote he says because it's higher than 10
Yeah. I'm sorry, I skipped the Shikha Gemara. No, we did it already. Tanya Nami Hachi. Ziz shalafnei chalon. A ziz that's right in front of a window. That extends out over our rishus harabim. So the loch is nois pinalov kairos v'koisos kisonios utzluchios. Plates and cups and saucers, jugs and other types of jars. These are all things, if you notice, all of these things are examples of highly breakable items. And umishtamish b'chalakoshel ad asar hatachtonim. So not only does the article say, the Bryce is explicit. If this shelf was within 10 tvachim of the floor, that shelf itself is called rishus harabim, and you wouldn't be able to put things onto the shelf. I think that's what you're referring to, right?
Exactly.
So you're only allowed to use shelves that are mounted on the wall above 10 tvachim from the ground. What if you have your window with your shelf, and then below your shelf there's another shelf that's lower down that you could put things on? You're allowed to use that as well, provided, of course, that it's also a minimum of 10 tvachim from the ground. But if there's a shelf above where you are, then then you're not allowed to use the entire width of this ledge if it runs across the building, even past your window. You're only allowed to use the part that's right opposite your window. Frank Gemara, why should it be any different if the ledge is above or if the ledge is below? Why are you limited only to your window opening? Frank Gemara, hi ziz heichadami. Either less by arba. If this is a very interesting line in the Gemara. Either less by arba. If this ziz doesn't have arba, makam turu. It's a makam tur. Fafilu keneged chaloinoi nami lo yishtamish. You shouldn't be able to use neged chaloinoi. Why not? It's a makam tur, right? That look that you have is the look. That's the look. That's the Gemara's look. That's what I see in the Gemara. Why in the world? It's a makam tur. So Rashi tells us a chiddush. So Rashi, The either less be'arba makom turu zok the Heilige Rashi. But if we look at chaloin lo nishtamish, why? Nehi the makom turu umuter lekasef alav kedekayim alon makom she'ein be'arba muter levnei rishus rabim uvelei rishus yachid lekatef alav, which is exactly what your face was. It's muter zok Rashi miutashmish toder lo mishterubei. You're not allowed to use it as a regular thing. Once in a while, you walk by, you can put something on. But to use it constantly, you're not allowed to. You know why? It's not really roy for tashmish. Since it's such a small little area, it's very likely that kalim will fall off into the Rishus Harabim. Even though we're talking about kalim on the shparim, so even if they fall off into the Rishus Harabim, that also shouldn't be a problem. If there's a bigger shelf there, that's when we allow you to regularly use it because it could fall, but it's not likely to fall. Aval hacha, the Ruben Nafli, if it's such a small ledge, there's a high likelihood that the kalim are going to fall. So now it's Mexican to show you the hedge of the Rishus Harabim. Somebody who's putting a kalim on that narrow shelf, which is high likely to fall, it looks like he's actually transferring it directly to the Rishus Harabim. And since it looks like he's transferring it directly to the Rishus Harabim, if it's a makam tur, even kalim lo yishtamish. The is be'arba. And if there is 4 tvachim in it, well then the chula akosel ishtamish. So why are you limited just to the area of this ledge that's opposite your windowsill? Why shouldn't you be able to use the entire width of it across the whole wall? Rabbi, I'll tell you the answer. Tachtoin is be'arba. The tachtoin that the Mishnah says, or that the Brisa says, you can use across the whole house. That's because in fact it was 4 tvachim wide, and therefore we're not choshed that it's going to fall off that often. And therefore, you can use kelim hanishborim according to Rashi. The elyon less be'arba. The elyon. There's one small detail we need to point out that the elyon is not the same type of ledge as the tachtoin. So it's not the fact that it's elyon that makes the problem. It's the fact that in addition to the elyon, it also happens to be less be'arba. The chaloin mashlimasay the dalit. So basically, your windowsill, which is the thickness of the wall, might be 2 tvachim. Then you have a ledge sticking out that's 2 tvachim. So between the two of them, you have 4 tvachim. But that's only connected chaloin mishtamish. The chure chaloinu, because you could extend the width of the whole platform and include the width of your windowsill. But the haggis are the haggisa. But where it extends to the right and to the left of your windowsill, where there's only 2 tvachim there, that's going to be asur. Tosfos doesn't like the way Rashi learns that you're never allowed to put regular kalim there. You're only allowed to put breakables. According to Rashi's learning, you're never allowed to put a non-breakable thing there. So Tosfos argues, and Tosfos says this is being by non-breakable. There's a whole different shot in the Gemara.
Why? The Gemara says we're talking about breakables.
The Gemara says we're talking about breakables, but the Gemara before, when the Gemara says talking about breakables, doesn't say that we're speaking about a thin ledge. It says speaking about a thick ledge. So even on a thick ledge, it's only breakables. Tosfos learns the Gemara before, which is breakables are speaking by a small ledge, but by a big ledge, you'd be able to put even non-breakables.
Really?
Yeah, Tosfos is a whole different shot. Because Tosfos doesn't like how Rashi learns over here. I mean, if you look at Tosfos says,
Rashi says you're increasing the chances.
So the reason why Tosfos doesn't like it is because the way Rashi learns, you could never use a ledge for a non-breakable container, no matter how big it is, right? Because once you're more than 4 tvachim, you might say, yeah, if it's 4 tvachim, it can fall off. But if it was a porch that's 10 feet by 10 feet, there will be allowed. But for Tosfos, you can't make that distinction because you never find in halacha a chiluk between greater than 4 tvachim and greater than 20 tvachim, right? The cutoff point between what's called the proper place is 4 tvachim or less or 4 tvachim or more. You can't make a sadush shear that's for breakable kalim, for non-breakable if it's 5 tvachim or bigger. You know, so the way Rashi's learning is you could never put a non-breakable kalim on a ledge, and Tosfos didn't like to say that. That's why Tosfos says it from shot. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Okay. This is a very sensitive Gemara.
Interesting, in a certain sense, places didn't accept Rashi's Rabbonis authority.
Well, Tosfos challenges Rashi all the time.
No, but instead, like Rashi Paskin, that breakables are like it's almost like a psak of a road, and places said no, it's not like a shot in the Gemara that places has.
Well, shot in the Gemara often impacts the halacha l'maisa.
Right, and places says because.
Oh, so you're saying this? I understand if Tosfos
doesn't make sense.
So what Chaim is saying is makes sense. I understand if Tosfos is arguing on Pshat and Rashi, and Agavacha comes out of the Chiluk L'Halacha.
Right.
Here Tosfos directly attacking Pshat.
Yeah.
I hear it. Very good, very good.
Is that what he said? Or can we still learn it? That he's just attacking the basis And you paskin how you want to
But
paskin.
Tosfos' problem with Rashi is that it's not established to say that you can never put a non-breakable keli on a ledge. Zog the Gemara weiter. Look at the Mishnah weiter. A person a lot of time rishus hayachid umataltal b'rishus harabim. So what the Gemara envisions is that you're standing lamayla miyud, and you're reaching down into the rishus harabim, and you're picking up a keli and you're moving it over. That's how the Gemara envisions it. Or b'rishus harabim umataltal b'rishus hayachid, or the opposite. When you're talking about standing in rishus hayachid and moving something that's rishus harabim, you shouldn't move it more than 4 hours. Now, right off the bat, I have to shine a light on my amaratzas. Again, we had a discussion if moving something pachos midal ramis is mutter or not, and we said it's osir, and it's osir lachol ma'aser. You're not allowed to move something pachos midal ramis. But the problem is, our Mishnah says beferish you could move something pachos midal ramis. Lechatchila oimid odem b'shus hayachid u'matapa b'shus harabim u'vivat shelo yachi chutz v'rabamis. So the poskim say that it's osir midarbanan to move something pachos midal ramis. That's if I want to move it 100 feet, so I move it little by little. But if you only want to move something 3 amas, that's mutter lechatchila, and that's what our Mishnah is talking about. And that's what the Mishnah says on the ferish.
Our Mishnah is also talking about the rishus harabim and the taltal rishus hayachid.
You're standing in the rishus hayachid.
Yeah,
but
or either or.
Yeah, but you're still moving something in rishus harabim.
But your case was always rishus harabim.
Correct.
That makes no difference.
If someone's standing in rishus hayachid and he's moving something in rishus harabim, that's not a svar to be matter. That's a svar to be more machmer, because there's an additional chashash that I might pull it in. So the chiddush is that I'm not worried that I might pull it in, and that's going to be the subject of a machlokes tanoim that we're going to see. Now comes another interesting halacha. What happens if you are in a very, very tight spot? You're on your way to shul, and you got to go. So you find a place in a private chutzner, you find someone's private yard, and you figured you'll do what you have to do there, but the only place where you could find, where you could relieve yourself to, is if the spray is going to go in to Rishus Harabim. So you're in Rishus Hayachid. So state in the Mishnah, Lo Yamid Odem Rishus Hayachid, a person shouldn't stand in Rishus Hayachid, be Yashim Rishus Harabim, and expel whatever he needs to expel into the Rishus Harabim, because he's being mochi Rishus Lashos, he's being mochi his urine from the Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim, or Rishus Harabim, be Yashim Rishus Hayachid. You shouldn't do that either. The Chen Layorik, you're not allowed to spit from Rishus Harabim to Rishus Hayachid, or vice versa. So before we go weiter, we learned that if you carry something that's of no value, that there's no Yisrael on it. Right. So urine, why does urine have value? Why does Roik have value? So we learned, in the Gemara Shabbos, we learned that urine was used as a detergent. It had value. And the Gemara told us that the urine is not good enough as a detergent until it's aged for 3 days. And this is fresh urine. But even fresh urine is considered valuable because you could age it. And therefore, there's going to be Israel on urine as well as Roik. Yeah. That's what we learned. The Gemara discusses actually the different simonim you need to test if something's dam nida or not. And you put all these simonim on it, and if it comes out, then it's dam nida. If it doesn't come out, it's not dam nida, because we know dam nida could be cleaned with these detergent. And I remember it had to be Roik a tuffle. It had to be morning breath. It had to be morning breath saliva, because that's even more potent to be able to kill.
Is that why you have to take your showers from your wife to the room in the morning?
I'm sorry?
Is that why you have to take your showers from your wife to the room in the morning?
Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda Omer, if Yehuda says, "Ap mishalitlish roikim befiv," your glands secrete saliva, but once there's like an amount, like a decent amount of roik that's already liquid in your mouth, lo yahalach arba amis, you're not even allowed to walk 4 amis at shiurik until you spit it out, because if you do, you're actually transporting the roik in your mouth, which is also a problem.
What's the difference if the roik is in your mouth or if the roik is in your body?
Because when it's in your body, it's bottled to your goof. It has to be separated from your body. It doesn't have a shame of an independent item until it's separated from your body.
And in your mouth, it's separated from your body?
Well, that's exactly what the Reader's Kiddush is that once it's like already a decent amount, you could swish it around already, that's called separated from your body. And there's going to be other shittas who holds that only after you actually swish it around. Even if there's a lot of roik, we didn't actually swish it around, it's still bottled to your body. There's a shayla at what point. The post can come out of here that there's one of the points can bring down that you're not allowed to eat poppy seeds on Shabbos because it's inevitable that a poppy seed will get stuck in your teeth, and then you're going to walk out with it. There's a lot of points can hold that you're not allowed to walk out with food in your mouth because you're going to be carrying it. Then there are shittas who hold that whatever's in your mouth you're not makbid on anyway, so it's bottle. But there are shittas that hold you're not allowed to walk out. Of course, if you don't have an erev, if you have an erev, you can do whatever you want.
When a person is walking where it's just around him, he's got to go because he's got to go. And the bladder is very, very full.
Right.
That's also now separated from his body.
Yeah,
The bladder is ready to expel it, just like the mouth. Whatever.
I hear Yora. How do I make that assessment? I'm not sure, but we do know that something Meir Gleim in the bladder is not considered separated from the gulf till it leaves. And we're going to soon see the Gemara reveals in detail exactly which part of his urinary tract is the mukam of the Akira.
These are the best Gemara.
Why?
I told you why.
No.
We see how Gemara is because it dwells down into these uncomfortable subjects.
Right.
So don't talk to me when it's subjects that we're interested in those subjects. We drill down into something we're interested in. No. Not like that. Here we drill down.
Beautiful. Look at the Gemara. Somebody's on hold over here. Someone's getting a beat. Zog the Gemara right there. Masni lo bar shlamya l'chiyah bar Rav kabei de Rav. Abchina bar shlamya quoted our Mishnah l'chiyah bar Rav in front of Rav, and he quoted our Mishnah as saying the opposite of what it says, and he quotes it as saying lo yamil adam u'metaltal b'shus harabim. So the problem is he's quoting our Mishnah wrong. So Amar Lei told him back. So Chiyah bar Rav told him back. Sorry, I made the Rav. Rav said back. Lo shavkas Amar Lei shavkas Rabbanan. Mayor, you're abandoning the sheet of the Rabbanan, which is the sheet of our Mishnah holds. Are allowed to do that, and you're saying that our Mishnah is saying what the Mayor says because our Mayor does not allow you to do this. And we're going to have later on in the Gemara the Machlokes, the next. That's the Machlokes of Mayor and the Rabbanan. But I'll call upon them. Mayor would answer here. So you're changing the Mishnah to be consistent with our Mayor Shita, and you're not passing like the Rabbanan Shita. How can you do that? Zok the Gemara, who Savar, the reason why he way is who Savar me to say for Reb Meir, since the next Mishnah that we discussed is going according to Reb Meir, and that the Shaila discussed there was if you're in Rosh Hashanah, you reach out into the Rosh Hashanah and pick up a key and open a door that's in the Rosh Hashanah. So since over there we passed like Reb Meir, he thought Reish Nami Reb Meir. He thought, I'm sorry, we don't pass like Reb Meir there, but since the next Mishnah is the Rishita of Reb Meir, and Reb Meir's name is listed there Farish, he thought that maybe this Mishnah should also be passed like Reb Meir, and that's why he quoted it differently. He quoted it according to Reb Meir's Shita. V'lo, it's not true. Sefer Reb Meir v'Reish Rabbanan, even though the Sefer is the Lach of Reb Meir, our Stam Mishnah is like the Shita of the Rabbanan, and you're allowed to stand in the and move something in Rosh Hashanah, and you don't have to worry that you're going to transfer it back into Rosh Hashanah. And
yes, you're
there
able to.
Are those who
mute. Yes,
someone's beeping there. I'm not sure.
It's a phone. It's a phone. 1526 ending.
It's 1526.
Ending. Oh, yeah.
I think it's Akiva, but I'm not sure.
898-1526.
That's Akiva. It's Dovru. Oh, it's Lightman. So let's see if I can. Okay, I'll mute him. Okay, I just muted him. Is that better? Oh, okay. Shoich Mech, if you're talking at the phone number, that allows me to unmute him. Thank you. Okay, geweldig. Teamwork.
Saving me a trip outside. I almost closed the door.
The other thing you were trying to ask is why did the Mishnah give us an example of someone standing in Rosh Hashanah moving something in Rosh Hashanah, and someone standing in Rosh Hashanah and moving something in Rosh Hashanah? Why isn't one example enough? It's the same principle. So they say that since Haitzah is a Malacha Gerua, and people have a problem understanding Haitzah because you're allowed to carry a very heavy thing inside your house as much as you want, but a feather you can't carry from one Rishus to another Rishus. So the Malacha Haitzah, the Gemara refers to right at the beginning of Shabbos, is a Malacha Gerua. Because of that, the Rabbanan, when they discuss about Haitzah, they elaborate more than typical. So it's mashma that if you actually were moitzi it lechutz. So what was the case? What was the case of the Mishnah where it says lechutz? It says you're allowed to move it. You're not allowed to move something. If you're standing in the Rishus HaYochid, you're not allowed to move something in the Rishus HaRabim more than 4 amos. So it's mashma if you did, it will be also. It would be not also. It would be chayiv b'deraisa. Now the Gemara is assuming that if you're standing in Rishus HaYochid and you're moving something in Rishus HaRabim, you're probably going to lift it up over here and lift it up above 10 tefachim because you're in Rishus HaYochid. You transport it in the airspace above 10 tefachim in the Rishus HaYochid over to the place of the Yadacha, and then you put it down in Rishus HaRabim once again. And the Gemara is understanding from our Mishnah that will be the case. And therefore, if you, I'm sorry?
Rashi says you're in a house or on a roof.
Right, but when you pick it up from the Rishus HaRabim, you actually take it above.
No person's not going to pick it up necessarily 10 when you pick it up.
Unless he's up there, right. So since he's up there, it makes sense to say he'll bring it to where he is, and then he'll move it.
A person holding something would generally 10 foot off the ground. 10 foot and 40 inches? No, you do. It's not that. 40 inches is very short.
I'm not sure about that, and I'll tell you why I'm not sure. But no, the physical. I'm not saying that. If you're standing in Rishus HaRabim and you're holding something, I'm not sure if that thing is considered in Rishus HaRabim or in Rishus HaYochid. Pashtus, if you're standing in a Rishus HaYochid, you're standing above 10 tefachim and you lift it, it's where you are. But if your feet are planted on the ground in Rishus HaRabim and you're holding something, even though your arm is above 10 tefachim, I believe that's still considered in Rishus HaRabim.
Oh, wow.
I believe so. And we're going to see that soon. We're going to see that soon today, if we get there. If you did it, chayiv chatos. Levi Messiah the Rava. This might be support the Rava. If someone moves a chavetz from the beginning of 4 amos to the end of 4 amos in Rishus HaRabim, but how did he transport it? He transported it through a mokim dura above 10 tefachim. Chayiv is chayiv. So this diak that we wanted to make for the Mishnah will support Rava. So tomorrow you don't have a right from our Mishnah. Mika Tani im Hoitzi Chayiv Chatos. It doesn't say that. It says Uvat Shlo Yotzi. But the Mishnah doesn't say what will happen if it's Yotzi. Who said it will be Chayiv Chatos? Maybe it's only Dirabanan. Dilmim Hoitzi Potter Avalosser. Ikadarmi. There's another way that the conversation happened. Ha Hoitzi Potter Avalosser. The dik is Lechatchila Hoitzi Potter Avalosser. So let me have it to Yufta the Rava. This would be inconsistent with Rava. Domer Rava Mabra Mechilas David Soy Dal Bevir Dem Halo Chayev. So tomorrow you don't have a right. Mika Tani Hoitzi Potter Avalosser. Dilmim Hoitzi Chayev Chatos. So from our Mishnah, it's not conclusive what would be the halacha if you were moitzit more than Dalet Amis. All we know is you're not supposed to do it. What triggers? If you do, we don't know. Zog Tehel the Gemara. You know the story with the guy who says, if you don't feed me, yichaltiv was the tatat katini. You know the story? You know the famous story. A guy was knocking on the guy's door. He was starving, and the guy says, "Don't come in." He wouldn't take the onion. So he said, "Die es nicht mich helfen, yichaltiv was my tatat katini." So the homeowner took it as a threat. He was a little afraid. He says, okay. He lets him in. He gives him to eat. The guy eats. He's satisfied. And he asks him, "Wus hat tatat katini?" When tatat gegangen ist, mit hingerig. So good. We don't know you shouldn't do it. What happens if you do it? A person shouldn't stand in Rishus HaYochid and go to the washroom and allow it to land in Rishus HaRabim. Amar Yosef, Hishtin Virok, if you actually did do it illegally, Amar Rishus HaYochid, Rishus HaRabim, Chayiv Chatos. How could you be Chayiv Chatos? Your mouth is not a Mokum Dalet Adalet. Your urinary tract is not a Mokum Dalet Adalet. So since there was no Akira made from a proper Mokum Dalet, you shouldn't be mechuyev. Yeah, technically you did move something from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim, but you weren't oikered from a Mokum Dalet. And we know that for the Melacha Haitzah, the Akira has to be from a Mokum Dalet. This is what Chaim Tzvi said. Since you need to go, and it's very important that you go, that gives your urinary tract a chashivas as a significant place where it's considered a good Akira. If you won't agree to the fact that you're machshava, the fact that you are machshav something, it makes it into a Mokum Dalet. Hada Amar Rava said, Zorach v'nach b'fiya kelev. What if you were playing catch with a dog and you threw something 4 amos and it landed in the dog's mouth? A dog's mouth is not a Mokum Dalet Dalet. Or b'fiya kivsham. or you were throwing something into some type of kettle. Chayiv chatos. How could you be chayiv chatos? But in hanocha al gabi mokum dalad v'leka. The kivshon and the pia kelev is not a mokum dalad. Elam achshavdoi meshavi elam mokim. Elamai, the fact that I want, the Rashi says, speaking where I'm throwing food, I wanted to feed the dog. I wanted to get into the dog's mouth. So my machshava is machshav, the mouth of the dog, to be a right place. The fact that you need to go to the washroom and you need to clear your bladder, that makes it good. Rashi says, machshava shu tzorich lekach. He really needs it. That makes it into a tzorich chashuva.
Right?
Because there I wanted to go there, here I wanted to leave there. Yeah, basically the arrivals terminal should have the same rules as the departure terminal. If it qualifies as a departure terminal, it qualifies as an arrival terminal. Now, the only thing you need to point out, that we're trying to speak out, is that's Davka, Rashi Tosha says, Davka b'chiyah gavna, in the hand of Oishel Mokim, Tvemi b'mokim acher, Kogoy b'fi chelev, Shuyechlena. There has to be a reason why I wanted to be there. Not that I'm throwing it there. There has to be a reason why I wanted there, only there I'm machshav and I'm mokim. But if I want to throw something, I don't care where it lands, and it lands on a place, that of course, or if I want to throw it on that place, if it's a stick and I want to throw something just randomly that it's a stick, I don't know if that counts. There has to be a good reason why I want this chayfetz to land there. Only then do you say that machshav and mashval. Boy Rabba, who rishus a yochid upi ama rishus a rabbin. So his bladder isn't the rishus a yochid, but his gid sticks out. So the point of departure from his body, the tip of his aver, is in the rishus harabim. So the question is, where do we say is the departure terminal? Ma'u basar akira linan? Do you say it's where the original departure is, meaning from his bladder, and therefore it's going from rishus hayachid to rishus harabim? Or is the departure terminal right where it leaves his body, and therefore it's going from Rishus Harabim to Rishus Harabim? And that's what the Gemara take you. So this is what I was referring to, how the Gemara drills down into the details of a person's body. What is the departure lounge of your urinary tract? Is it the bladder or is it the piyama?
That would be an interesting bar mitzvah.
It has to be from, I want to bring a ride that is from the bladder.
Why?
Because the bladder holds the urine.
Right.
Whereas the gid holds other things besides urine.
You're in luck.
You're in luck.
I don't know. He's saying good. But the mice, that's where it's from. What?
Imagine the guy who went to ask the Shiloh in his mentor.
Yeah. Talk to Gemara. V'chein lo yorek. You're also not allowed to spit. Rabbi Yehuda says that even once the saliva is already assembled in your mouth, you're not even allowed to walk Talad Amos anymore. In fact, the more even though you didn't swish it around with your tongue, just the saliva assembly in your mouth, even if you didn't swish it around, that's also considered separated. But we learned, and the Gemara is going to bring a ride that Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's only considered separated liquid if you swished it around in your mouth. And that's going to be the kasha. Here, Rabbi Yehuda says, even if you didn't swish it around in your mouth, and there it seems that it's only considered a separate mashka if you swished it around in your mouth. So what was the case? We're talking about a case of Tumah V'Tahira. We know that Truma can become even a Shlishi L'Tumah, right? But a regular Michael, regular Chulun cannot become a Shlishi L'Tumah. It stops at a Sheni. We also know that all hands, even nowadays, have the status of a Sheni L'Tumah, and that's why the Rabbanan say that before you eat bread, you have to wash your hands, right? So you were eating a devela, which is a fig of Truma, and it was in your mouth. You never touched it. And your hands are Tomei Sheni. Now, I'm sorry, even if you touched the devela and put it in your mouth, that wouldn't have been a problem. Because if the devela never became wet, Paris have to be Hoshur L'Kabel Tumah by coming into contact with the mashke. So you can pick up a dried devela, even though your hands are tummy, and you can drop it into your mouth, and there's no problem. But what happens then is you had something in your mouth that you wanted to take out, and you put your finger in your mouth. Now you touched your saliva. So kum t'chayis, right? So what that does is not you touch your saliva. Your saliva made once the food is in your mouth, the saliva would be machshir the food, the kabel tumah, and when you put your finger in your mouth, you're now touching the devela itself, which would already be hochshel kabel tumah because it came into contact with your saliva. So Rav Meir holds that this devela is tamei because we consider it hochshel kabel tumah because of the saliva that was in your mouth. Rabbi Yosy Mitayr. Rabbi Yosy holds it's Torah because the saliva will not be considered a mashka until it leaves your guf. And Rashi says, as long as it's in your mouth, the guf of a person is not masher anything, the kabel tuma. So therefore, the saliva that's still in one's mouth will not be masher the veil of kabel tuma. So even if you touched it, it won't make it tummy. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, if you swish the saliva around in your mouth already before you put your finger in, then the swished saliva, that is a mashka, an independent mashka, and that would be mashka the vela, the kabel tuma. But if there was just saliva accumulating in your mouth, but you didn't swish it around, then we say it's part of your guf, and the vela was never huksher la kabel tuma, and since the vela was never huksher la kabel tuma, it's going to be tar. What do we want to extract from here is that Rabbi Yehuda holds that saliva assembling in your mouth isn't automatically considered a mashka, only if you switched it around. And Rashi here learns your chiddush. Normally, mechalefes hashita means swap around the shittas in the Mishnah or swap around the shittas in the Brisa. Rashi, that's not what it means. Rashi learns Rabbi Yehuda changed his mind. Rabbi Yehuda originally said in the Mishnah that saliva is automatically considered a mashka, and therefore you can't walk with it in your mouth. And then in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda changed his mind and said, no, saliva is not automatically considered a mashka unless you first switched it around. Why should you say that Rabbi Yehuda changed his mind? Say that there's a difference in two cases. Where do you say that it's automatically? Where do you say that it's automatically considered liquid? That's if you're talking about your saliva. But the bride that says you got to switch it around, that's with your phlegm, right? That you have to switch around to make it separate from your body. In fact, the Gemara, how could you say that? My love, roik v'nitlash. Wouldn't you say that he's referring not only to kechai but also to roik? So you see both need to be switched around. That's more loy kechai v'nitlash. But roik would not need to be nitlash. Roik, as soon as it assembles in his mouth, maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds that that's considered a separate mashka. In fact, the more you can't say that because we have an explicit brisa. But Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer kechai shenitlash v'chein roik shenitlash. The Bach changes it to kechai v'chein roik shenitlash. So it actually makes it into one halacha. Lo yahalach dal ramis ad shiyork. You're not allowed to walk 4 amas and carry this. So you see clearly that Rabbi Yehuda holds that both keichoi and roikoi, it will not be considered a separate mashka until it's switched around. We have to say that Rabbi Yehuda did change his mind, and in the Mishnah he held that roik automatically is considered separated from his body, but then he changed his mind and he said only if you switched it around. And now that we're talking about things that make us feel uncomfortable, like phlegm spitting out and icky things, the Gemara goes right and says, Amar Shlokish, if someone went in front of his Rebbe, chayiv misa, he'll be chayiv misa. Shneimar said in the pasuk, Kol mesanai ahavu mavis. All those who hate me love death. The Torah is saying, if you hate the Torah, you love death. So we darshan al tigri lemesanai ela lemasniai. Anybody who makes Torah be hated will merit death. Why is that? Because if people see someone spitting out in front of his Rebbe, that's a miyasazach. And they'll be repulsed with the Torah and what it represents, and therefore they're deserving of death. Frank Gemara, what do you want? The guy coughed up. What is he supposed to do? So tomorrow, I don't mean to say that he just had phlegm in his mouth. I mean if he spits it out in public, that's disgusting.
Right?
But I guess you could do it, but not when people are looking, maybe to the side. Like even by the Lubavitchers, they cover their mouth a little bit when they do it, right? And the poskim say that it's also to spit in front of anybody. The chi of misa is only if it's in front of your Rebbe, but it's also it's not nice. And the Lubavitchers, you see when they spit, it's very discreet, right? Because the whole word is you don't want to do it in front of people.
So,
The old Baltimore Midrash used to have something called the spittoon.
What does that mean?
It
was like an ashtray. Like an ashtray.
Yeah.
didn't have tissues. This is a modern invention. Last 100 years, the tissues and Kleenexes came out. That was spittoon. Not everybody had a hanky.
Everybody had a hanky. That was the whole idea.
The hanky got so wet already that they needed a spittoon.
You know what they say? My son once asked me in Tosh, why is it? You know they have those towels, the 2 towels. So why is it that whenever they have towels, there's a sink near it? She says, so if by mistake you touch the towel, you can quickly wash your hands.
What it called the
two comments. The Purim Rav once said that the Haman was considered, no, the daughter was considered dead while the garbage was still in the air.
That's
You
right.
remember that?
Avel
Really
v'chafui
considered
roish.
Avel.
Haman was Avel v'chafui roish because first it became Avel, even though his daughter didn't hit the ground yet. The garbage was thrown first, right? And then she jumped, so she hit the ground later. So first he got hit with the garbage. So first he was v'chafui roish, and then only then he became an Avel when his daughter died. The Torah says once she jumped out and she's for sure going to die, he was already Avel.
So therefore, potential energy is considered already out.
That's right.
So if this guy, when he's spitting, it's not the same thing. If he's already considered going to spit.
I guess if you're planning not to spit, I hear.
Yes.
Okay, Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Lo yamid adam b'rishus hayachid v'yishte b'rishus harab. A person shouldn't stand in rishus hayachid and lean over into rishus harabim and drink, or b'rishus harabim v'yishte b'rishus hayachid, or stand in rishus harabim and lean over in rishus hayachid, because we're afraid that he's going to bring things back in with him. Unless most of his body is in there, so there we're not concerned that he's going to bring it back out and transport the water from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim, or vice versa. The Chein Begas, and the same thing applies in a wine press, which we'll discuss later. The Gemara has two pshatim in that. So I'm just thinking to myself, Chaim Tzvi brought up an issue. If you're standing in the Rishus HaRabim and you're holding something, I claim, I don't have proof to it, but I claim that means you're in the Rishus HaRabim too. The only time we say that you could be in the Rishus HaYachid when you're moving something in Rishus HaRabim is if you're standing above 10 and you're lifting up something with Rishus HaRabim. But if you're standing with your feet in Rishus HaRabim and lifting it, then you're considered right. So that's what I want to bring up. This Mishnah says that if I'm standing with my feet in the Rishus HaYachid and I'm leaning over into the Rishus HaRabim, the water is in the Rishus HaRabim. So it seems to be that there's a difference between a vertical separation and a horizontal separation. If you're standing in a Rishus HaRabim and you're leaning over into Rishus HaYachid, even though your feet are firmly planted in Rishus HaRabim, while the body of your body that crossed a horizontal barrier, actually crossed a vertical barrier, it moved horizontally, that's considered now in the Rishus HaYachid.
This was already an issue when the fellow was urinating.
Yeah, it was the same concept.
Exactly.
Why do you wait until here?
Because this is where it clicked in my head when I was learning it. But you're right. So that's a very important point to note.
They had the same issue with Reb Chaim when he was 6 years old. He was 6 years old in Cheder, and the Cheder boy asked the Rebbe why is it that the tzarei that a tzarei needs that a tzaddik that a pay needs a tzarei under it. Because the pay is a pay without a tzarei. Right. So why did you have to put up the tzarei? You don't pay anyway. So they asked Reb Chaim. So the Rebbe went to Reb Chaim and said, Chaim, well, why didn't you ask this question? You have a good head on your shoulders. So he went over to the little boy. He gave a slap. So he said to the Rebbe, what's going on? So the Rebbe said to him, what's going on? He asked a good question. So he says, if it was a bad question, then he gets a slap. And if it's not, and if it's a good question, he should have asked it by hey. Obviously, by hey, he wasn't getting attention.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So Zok the Heilige Gemara. Actually, it got triggered by the next Mishnah, which I was having a problem understanding, and with this understanding that there's a difference between horizontal split and a vertical split, made more sense. So let's see the more. In fact, Reisha Rabbanon, the Sefer Reb Meir, the Reisha is going according to Rabbanon, because the Friedrich Mishnah we learned said that you could move things, if you're in Rishus HaYachid, you can move things into Rishus HaRabim, and we're not afraid you're going to bring it in. And in this Mishnah here, we are afraid that you're going to bring it in. If in the last Mishnah we weren't afraid that when you're standing in the Rishus HaYachid, and you're moving something in Rishus HaRabim, there's no gzeir that it might carry that keli into Rishus HaRabim, into the Rishus HaYachid where I am. So if there's no gzeir there, why is there a gzeir over here? Zok the Gemara, it must be that this Mishnah is going according to Reb Meir. Zok the Gemara on Rabbi Yosef, the chafetzin shetzrichen loy. We're not. If I'm in Rishus HaYachid and I'm moving around kalim in Rishus HaRabim, but they're not especially important kalim to me, I'm not concerned that I might bring them in. And therefore, the Mishnah earlier says you can move things, even though you're in the Rishus HaYachid, you're allowed to move things around in the Rishus HaRabim. But here we're talking about things that are very important to me, such as water. I need water. I really need that water. I got to drink. Or any type of kalim that are very, very important to me. There, in fact, the Rabbanan would hold you are gozer, and we're afraid that you will bring it to you. Like Rashi says, the Rabbanan moidu the gozer behu that we make the gzeira. since he really needs those kelim, yachnisa metzloi, he'll bring them from the Rosh Hashanah into him. Hilchach mashkin alalu, water as well. Tzricheloi is something that's very important to him because we're afraid he's going to pull back his mouth and he's going to carry it in to the Rishus HaYochid. So therefore, in fact, even this Mishnah might be going according to the Rabbanon. V'divrei Kol. Iboilu, Karmelis Mai. What if I was going from, I was in a Rishus HaYochid, can I drink from a Karmelis? Or if I was in a Rishus HaRabim, can I drink from a Karmelis? You have the same problem. Rabbi, no, it's the same thing, the same Gezerah we make when there's a Deraisa, we'll make the Gezerah by a Karmelis. Rav asked, why would you do that? He gufa Gezerah. The whole reason why we're not letting him lean over to drink is a Gezerah. And the Karmelis is also only a Gezerah. How could you do that? So the answer, Abaye did hold you making a Gezerah. So either some Rishonim say that it was one big takana, or when it comes to Eitzah, Rabbanan are extra careful because people don't take Eitzah so seriously. But Rabbi Minah, I can prove to you that this halacha also applies to a Karmelis. Midikatani, our Mishnah says v'chein begas, right? We didn't know what that meant. So Abai is saying, I'll tell you what v'chein begas means. V'chein begas must mean that it's speaking about a gas that's not a Rishus HaRabim or Rishus HaYochid, it's a gas that's a Karmelis. Because what else is it? What else could the Mishnah mean to add by throwing in v'chein begas? It must be that it's referring to a Karmelis, and you see in the Mishnah itself that we have a problem with reaching over from a Rishus HaYochid or a Rishus HaRabim into a Karmelis. A gas is a press. It's like a wine press.
So drinking from a wine press?
So a wine press. So what it would mean is that you pressed wine on the wine press, and you want to stick your head. You're standing in Rishus HaRabim or in Rishus HaYochid. When you stick your head over the wine press to drink a kos of wine that you have right on the press. So the fact that we have the same gzera there, even if you did bring it from the wine press to you, it's only a drabon anyway, because the wine press is a Karmelis. You see that there's a gzera even when there's a Karmelis involved. That's a bayishita. Rav Amar, that has nothing to do with it. This gas has nothing to do with Hilchos Shabbos. The Chaim Begas is a whole shaila in Hilchos Meiser. We know that halacha is tevel. You're allowed to eat tevel. It's actually not even called tevel yet. The payers don't even become tevel until it's brought in to your home b'kviyas. While it's still in the field, or in this case, while the wine is still being processed, there was not yet a din of tevel chal on it. But midrabanan, they don't allow you to drink it b'derech kviyas. But b'derech arai, you're allowed to drink wine even though you weren't mafresh trumas and ma'asros yet. So the shaila over here is the wine on the press. When is it called arai? When is it called klava? So Rav Amali Meiser, the Chaim Rav Sheshes, the Chaim Begasli and Meiser. Itnan, what are the specifics of the case? The loch is shoysen ala gas. You're allowed to drink wine on the gas, and it's not a problem. The gas might be the gas in Yiddish. It means on the wine press, you're allowed to drink on the wine press itself because it's not called yet tevel. Now, no one drinks raw wine. It's always mixed with water, and you can mix it with cold water, or you could mix it with warm water. If you mix it with warm water, whatever you mixed has to be consumed, otherwise it'll go bad. But if you mix it with cold water, if you don't drink it all up, you can dump it back in because the cold water doesn't create a wine that's going to go bad. So it says shoysen alagas bein bechamin bein betzayin. Even if it's warm water that you mix the wine with, or with cold water, you'd be allowed to drink it upater, and you'd be pater from ma'asros because we'll say that's not kavua. Divrei Meir. Rabbi Eliezer bar Tzadok mechayiv. Rabbi Eliezer bar Tzadok holds that you'd be chayiv. Once you moizik this wine, that's called a kviyas already, and you'd be chayiv to take off ma'asros before you're allowed to drink. If you mix the wine with warm water, that means you're going to have to drink this whole thing up. That's called making a kviyas. You'll be chayiv. But if it was cold water, then it doesn't even mean really that you're going to take it because you might just leave it there, and therefore you'll be pater. So the question is, when you drink in the gas, right? In the case where you're drinking in the gas, do you have to be on the press, or could you stand beside it and lean your head over it? So our Mishnah is telling you the chein begas. If Rosh Rubai is leaning over onto the gas, then you're allowed to drink wine because it's considered derech arai in the gas. But if your Rosh Rubai was out and you just stuck your head in, then you're not allowed to drink from the gas because we're afraid that you're going to just move over. And the moment you move over and you've taken the wine out of the gas, there's a chi of meiser, and if you drink it, it will be tevel. So it's the same principle, but it has nothing to do with Hilchos Shabbos. That's a Rava learns this Mishnah. Zok the Gemara weiter. Koyot Adam mina maschila lamatam yitfachem u'manatina mikol makom shoyz. In those days, they had flat roofs. Chaim, we need your help over here because we're talking about roofing technology. In those days, they had flat roofs, and the flat roofs would have a whole bunch of grooves in them. I've never seen that nowadays. And a whole bunch of grooves in them that would allow the rain on the roof to gather in those grooves and drain off to the side. Now, when it would drain off to the side, if it would just run down the wall, it would mess up the wall. So then they put an eave. They put an eave along the side of the wall, so all those individual grooves that were built into the roof fell into that eave. So nowadays, we have the eave. I don't think we have grooves in our roof, right? We have roof drains. But in those days, they actually had little channels, little trenches cut out into the actual rooftop.
The only time when we do have roofs is in metal roofing.
Right.
When you have
It
a
has to
roof,
be, somewhat
because
slanted.
they have raised, they have raised, what do we call it again?
Flutes,
No, we have raised seams,
right?
right? Because there's one seam to another. So in
Right.
order to make sure that there's nothing going to leak in the seam,
They raise
you have
them,
a
so
little bit
water
of
runs down.
upturn, and you fold one piece of metal over the other one.
Uh-huh.
So there's actually no water going into that seam.
Uh-huh.
So those seams are going to start creating all kinds of grooves.
Uh-huh.
That's the only time that I remember.
And those grooves would channel the water, and then you'd have an eaves along the side, picking it all up.
Another time
It
when
has
you-
to be somewhat slanted, all right?
Yeah, it has to be a little bit sloped. It has to be a little bit sloped.
Yeah, another time. when
Even
you-
flat roofs are slightly sloped.
Yeah.
Another time, but they always get messed up because the building settles. They also have grooves many times in roofs also here, maybe because they make things corrugated in order to give them strength.
That's right. That's the roof. But usually those corrugated roofs have the ceiling on top of it, right?
But if you make something corrugated,
Right.
it gives strength.
Okay, that's right.
Add another
Now here?
similar building technique.
So the way it worked is, and there'd be an eave. Now the eave would carry all the water, and then it would dump it away from the building. Sometimes they actually connected that eave to a downpipe, to a downspout that came down and then turned out away from the building. The significant point is that these eaves were within 3 tefachim of the top of the roof. The top of the roof is a Rishus HaYachid. Anything below 10 tefachim is considered a Rishus HaRabim if this wall of the house is against the Rishus HaRabim. So what we're saying is we have a roof that's 10 tefachim high or more, so it's Rishus HaYachid. The eaves might be within 10 tefachim, but since they're very close to the roof, the Gemara is going to tell us they're considered a Rishus HaYachid. So therefore, koyot adam na maschila lamatam yutfachim. If you wanted to capture water from this drain pipe, you're not allowed to put your cup right up against the drain pipe and take water. But what you could do is you could stand in midair, you hold the cup in midair and watch the stream and put it into the stream where the water will come into your cup. How does it work? If you're holding your cup in the Rishus HaRabim, which is below 10 tefachim, and the spout is draining below 10 tefachim right into your cup, I'm not transferring anything from any Rishus to any Rishus. My cup's in Rishus HaRabim, and the water in midair is in Rishus HaRabim, and it's coming into my cup. I'm not doing anything wrong. But if I put my cup right up against the eave is considered the Rishus HaYachid because it's bottled to the roof. And your cup, you standing there, you're considered the Rishus HaRabim. And therefore, there'll be an issue involved. And it's this Mishnah that woke me up to the fact that even though I might be holding this cup up high, I'm still considered a Rishus HaRabim because that's where I'm standing when I'm holding that cup. So, if the maschila is l'matam yutfachim, I could be koilet, but I cannot actually, koilet means to catch it in midair after it comes out of the pipe, but I cannot actually put my cup against it. But if it's a down pipe, which goes down and then sticks 3 or 4 tefachim away from the house, there I'm allowed to put my cup up right up against it, because then it's already in the Rishus HaRabim, it's not bottled anymore to the Rishus HaYachid. I guess we'll stop here.
There's another way how a person can make a roof like that.